What is good, everybody? Mark with Carterbox Academy here, and today we're doing another student spotlight because I had a lot of fun with the last one. If you are new to the channel or you haven't seen it, I am a full-time harsh metal vocal coach. I teach people how to do crazy sounds safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves. And I've had students for about almost the past 5 years. So what that means is students that I had early on are sort of in the middle of my career here at Carterbox Academy. They're starting to come out of the woodwork and say, hey, like I took what you learned or what you taught me. I took what I learned and I'm doing this project now. So please check it out. So we're doing another one of those today because I'm excited about it. Now, the band, sorry, oh, my waveform looks so small. That's what she said. Sorry. The band that we're going to be talking about today is a very cool band called Obey the Kraken. I stuttered on it, but I'm going to leave it in. The band is called Obey the Kraken, and my student, his name is Dan or Daniel. I don't know which he prefers. It's been a little while, but he came to me for lessons. He was already able to make a lot of really cool tones, but he was having a lot of issues with discomfort, right? Pain, strain, overexertion, over projection. So our goal was to kind of like the last video where with Jake of Aphasia, take his voice and say like, okay, let's try to keep your sound intact, but make it more helpful or healthy and comfortable. And we did it, right? And so I'm excited to hear this song. We're going to be talking about Haunting Echoes of the Sea, again, by Obey the Kraken. And this is, I believe, their debut album, right? So they're just hitting the scene, so to speak, at least as this project here. So let's go ahead. Let's check it out. If you enjoy the way that I talk about music and that I talk about vocal education, definitely hit me up, carterboxacademy.com, if you're interested in taking lessons. Check out our e-course, blah, 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 all that stuff. Let's just listen to the dang song. Here we go. A little silent intro, dramatic effect. There we go. Okay, that's a good place to stop. I love that little, like that little stutter effect that they did into the breakdown. That was super sick. So the main thing, obviously, I'm listening to here, you know, knowing what we went over in our lessons, knowing what we talked about is how open does the actual, how do I explain this? How relaxed and open is the tone while being properly engaged and constricted in the right spaces, right? When we make a lot of these screams, like for example, these high screams, we have to constrict somewhere in the vocal tract. We have to, right? It's the only way we're going to be able to hold on to the airflow and create some sort of distortion. Sure, you can do it, you know, some techniques you can choose to do it less or more, right? But, you know, the key is engaging in such a way where you are going to be removing effort from your throat and placing effort on muscles and tissues that can handle the workload, right? We have a tissue in our mouth and in our throat called stratified squamous epithelium. Take that to your fondue parties and press your friends. And that tissue is very able to take friction, right? It's very able to handle friction. It's very smooth. It's very, well, anyway, you get the idea, right? So when we take the distortion away from the vocal folds and we place it on those tissues, right? Like we're able to create some really cool tones with a lot of comfort, right? And I'm hearing this across the entirety of his voice. We're getting a very compressed, very punchy fry sound, very fry forward sound, as y'all know I like to say. And it sounds really good. There's a lot of acrobatics here. There's a lot of movement. It certainly sounds like he's gotten more dexterous with his voice, which is weird because it comes from the word for hands. But at least I believe it does. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're talking about the voice, but there's a lot of agility in the voice here that I'm very impressed with. And a lot of that is going to come from first and foremost, his practice, right? He's clearly put in a lot of work for his voice, but B, understanding how, you know, support and placement allows us to do screams away from pain. So excellent job, dude. Excellent job. Let's keep going. This is really good stuff so far. Plus it's a bop. It's nice when it's a bop. Daniel, you need to take a shower because you are filthy, my friend. You are filthy. I was gonna pause it because I heard that break in the sound, but then I also heard the song, like the tide receded and all that was left were those chanty high vocals, and I was like, I know what's coming. Right, I know what's coming. So let's definitely. There's been a lot of growth in various sounds and techniques. Right, I can definitely tell that like the pig squeals, that the tunnels, that the gutturals have really come a long way. Now, interestingly enough, Daniel's doing a type of guttural that's a little bit different. Right, a little bit different. When we're talking about gutturals, there's not like a precise, black and white, sort of gridlocked way of defining them, right? Generally, when we're talking about gutturals, we're not just talking about really low screams, although a guttural is always going to be low until it changes, right? We're not just talking about low screams, but we're talking about low screams that have a very like wide, round resonance to them, or that have like a very like isolated resonant tone. Like for example, when I do gutturals, me personally, well, not me, a lot of people do gutturals. There's a lot of right, right, and then we can kind of maximize that, and there we get like a really guttural sound, right? What I'm hearing from, let's go back. Actually, I want to make sure that's correct. Let's go. Oh, look, he's peeking out of the shadow. That's spooky. Let's check that out. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of how I want to describe this. Not because it's anything, I mean, it's very impressive. It's not like something like crazy hard to describe, but this isn't how a lot of people do gutturals. So it's kind of basically what I'm hearing, and I might run into them in Germany when we play Euroblast at the end of this year, because that's where this band is from. I'm not sure where in Germany though. So, but everywhere in Germany is close to Cologne, right? I don't know geography. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. Calm down. But anyways, instead of going like, it's almost like a, right? We're running on an vowel, and it's a very like tongue attached to the roof of the mouth. Which is actually really fascinating because in English, right? Well, not, okay. In many languages that have the sound, English being one of them, one of the main ones that has such a distinct R sound, not the only one. We have two main ways of doing it. We have the bunched R, where the tongue kind of bunches up in the back of the mouth, and then we have the retroflex, like the which you can kind of hear if you were to say that's really interesting. Crispy rice, crispy R, versus crispy rice, crispy rice, crispy rice, crispy rice. You can hear me going back and forth. Crispy rice, crispy rice, crispy rice, crispy rice, right? You have two ways of doing it. Now, for me, I don't do the retroflex R, the tongue curled back R, so it sounds a little unnatural because that's just not how I talk, right? But this guttural, it almost sounds like it's building on the retroflex R, which is a really fascinating thing I'd never really considered, right? So we have this like, which would be similar to a guttural, but notice how it's not as open, right? For a normal guttural. That's hard for me to do. I'm not used to that. It really lets me isolate certain frequencies. Let me fuck around with that a little bit. Yeah, well, okay, this is just me doing it like that for the first time. I've never done it like that in my life, but that's what I'm hearing. I can definitely see how you can hold a really even tone. Like a guttural like this, unless you're doing a lot of work at the top of the throat to hold on to air, it can be very easy to dump air out with this, especially if you were doing more of a fry vocal. Yeah, which I'm not going to do right now, but I'm going to do that. I think I'm squeezing too much. There we go. Wow, you can really get some nasty harmonics that way. That's really cool. Anyway, point is, it sounds really cool, and I'm having fun playing around with it, and I've never really thought about that before. So that doesn't happen very much because I've been listening to a lot of metal and teaching a lot of metal for a long time, but that's fun. If I see him in Germany, we'll compare some notes. We'll compare some notes, man. We'll compare some notes, but really cool, really neat sound. You're very comfortable with it too. I have to work at it for a little while. I want to pause it again because that's a good place. That was a really cool pattern. That down, 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 down with those highs. We had the guitar chugging. We had the, I don't know which cymbal it was. One of the drum cymbals going, tss, 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 and we had him with a very snarly like, bum bum da dum 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 bum 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 bum. Cartoon. Sorry, it just reminds me of a jingle from way back in the day. Not when he does it, when I sang it, but. Really nicely done. One of the ways that you're going to do that, right? One of the ways that you're going to do that, right, is by making sure that you're really focusing on aiming your resonance up into this space, right? Hey, speaking of cartoon, speaking of Cartoon Network, it's where it comes from. This is like a very like Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory, right? Now the trick here, and that sounds easy for most people to make. Making that sound without excess pressure on your vocal folds, excess glottal tension, that's a different ball game. That's the part where sometimes it has to be taught and definitely has to be practiced, right? What I don't want to do is I don't want to do this. Hey, I'm Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory. What I want to do is I want to do more of like this sort of thing. Hey, you can hear that if I move away from that nasal space, the vocal folds they're definitely connecting. I'm definitely throwing more twang than I would ever sing with on there, right? Hey, yeah. And if I do like a little bit of distortion through that space, right? We can do a lot of really cool things. And it definitely feels like it's a very high pressure sound. It's a very high pressure sound, but that pressure feels like it's in the very back of my mouth. I don't really feel it under here. It feels like back there, right? And he's really reached across listening to this song, he's really reached a very good point of relaxation between the amount of engagement and pressure he has to use without overusing, right? And that is going to be one of the main things with reducing pain and strain, right? Knowing how much pressure to use. And the answer is usually a lot less than you think, right? Anyways, it's clear that something absolutely disgusting is about to happen. So let's just hit play. Let's just hit play. Here we go. Oh. So I'm going to tell you the truth here. My favorite part of that was I don't even remember exactly which low it was, or maybe it was more of a mid. I don't know. Really kind of caught me off guard, but it was this, right? This empty space, and then just like this punch, unmute, mute, bump, right? Let me find that again. I think that's like, I don't know. Let's just go back here. Whatever. I don't care. Sounds like there's a little chant, like a clean singing voice layered really far back, giving it like almost like a calling out across the sea thing. Maybe that just because the name is Obey the Kraken, like they've put that bias in my brain. But anyway. Oh yeah, there it is. Duh. Man, I'm not a religious man, but I feel like I gotta, I don't know, pray after that. And if you're in the metal world, you know that like all these gross faces I'm making are actually a very good compliment. Like if you write metal and you make somebody look like they're about to vomit, you're doing a good job. There was a lot of interesting stuff in there, but I want to talk about two main points. One is his really muffled mid. He does something that a lot of the time makes vocals quite difficult. For him, it sounds pretty comfortable. I'd be interested in talking to him about it, but it's very like back here, right? Like we can strategically use a sort of muffling of the voice in our music, right? In order to create a really good effect, right? This muffly, in fact, let's just turn that off. That's really distracting me. So let me just turn this off and center out again, right? So this muffly tone can be very, very difficult to work with, right? It is very common to do like a sort of natural sense of muffle when we do vocals. Like if I do like a mid, like a more roaring, like, my voice sounds like this. But he takes that and he cranks it like it's, I don't know if I can do that way. No, I don't know. I would need to, I don't really know how to replicate that. Like I know what to do with the tongue, but because the type of distortion I do is so fundamentally different. Like this guy's rocking the fries to the max, right? It's just gonna be very different than what I do. But it's very fascinating. It's like this, like a sometimes when you're trying to figure out a vocal, I'll just let you watch this in real time. It's best to start off with a clean voice. And what you're doing when you're using that clean voice is, yes, you're trying to mimic the overall like flavor and tone of the vocal, but you're trying to use that clean voice as a way to probe around to find the comfort, right? So I'm kind of like blindfolded and I'm like poking around, I'm like snaking around for the comfort. So that's pretty comfortable. That's not. That's too much on the vocal cords. There we go. Okay, I can work with that. Maybe a little bit more air through there. It's not exactly what he's doing, but it's kind of close. He sounds a lot better than I do when I do it. And then there was like this like lifted like a bleh, but it wasn't a bleh, it was an ugh. And I loved that because that's exactly what I was feeling. It was like this. There's more voice in it. Yeah, was that it? Which hey everybody, here's the thing. You know, there it is. Sometimes people are like, Mark, what would it sound like if you did a fry scream? There you go. There's one right there. Very different from what he's doing. But sorry, I know I'm mostly talking about like playing around with vocals, but this was very interesting. I usually hear stuff and I can replicate it pretty well, but this was a very different technique than what I'm used to. So Daniel's been working at some stuff here, and it sounds really, really neat. I'm like legitimately distracted because like right now I'm not in like educator and entertainer mode. I'm in like vocal enthusiast mode, and I'm like, but what position was his tongue in? But but what sort of activation was going on, like on a more technical level? So I'm just going to wrap it up here. First of all, the song's definitely a bop. I'm very excited to hear what comes out next. And to get an idea of what they're doing, definitely check this band out. You know, I will say in my lessons with him, he was a very dedicated. He was not messing around. He was like, "Yo, I am here to be a badass vocalist," and he eyes on the prize. And I remember after our lessons, I was like, "This dude's gonna do some shit. He's gonna do some shit." And sure enough, here he is doing some shit. So to the guys, to Daniel and the rest of the guys in Obey the Kraken, thank you so much for sending this my way. This is one of my favorite parts of the job, is seeing where my students go. Even if they only take a handful of lessons, or if they take lessons for a long time, it's awesome, because this is what we want to do. And I just want to point out, like, a lot of what we heard, this is from Daniel's hard work, right? Yeah, he took lessons from me, but there's a lot of hard work put in outside of the lessons, and that's where a lot of the growth happens. So kudos for the hard work. You know, I know that learning harsh vocals can be a grind, but clearly you've stuck with it, and you're doing a great job. So with that being said, that's all I got. Go check out the boys and Obey the Kraken. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.